Hey, it's Mike Henry with Follower of One. And today, my guest is a friend, a new friend through the Marketplace Mission Trips, Steve Metzgar. Steve, would you tell everyone hi?
Hi, Mike, and hi, everyone else.
So Steve, let's start a little bit with just tell us a little bit about yourself and your family, what kind of work you do.
Okay. My family, I've got three kids, three amazing kids. Youngest one is graduating high school this year, so a little rough
Wow.
there. A wonderful wife. She's a pediatric nurse, and I'm a manager at one of the larger pharmaceutical companies. We make vaccines. Yes, we are working on the COVID vaccine, two of them, and we're also helping out the two of the other vaccines that are already in market. We're helping fill and pack those two because, as our CEO said, it is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very cool. And what kind of work do you do there?
I oversee training for access to one of the main computer systems, specifically the good manufacturing side, all the production.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
And you've been with this company a long time, right?
a long time. I grew up there, literally. My dad started there back in '66. And
Wow.
so I literally grew up on the campus, started there right after college, and just left for 2 years, came back, and it's been home ever since.
So now tell me a little bit about how you became a Christian too, because I know this is going to all come together, I think, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I grew up in the church, had a faith all along. My mom was a Sunday school teacher. I was the acolyte, the crucifer. I became the head acolyte, training the others. Even ministered to some of the ministers as they would get nervous before the service. And just always had a knack for that. Um, but apparently, I didn't really grasp the concept of grace and forgiveness. And that happened much later in life. My mom had gotten suddenly ill, and actually things took a turn for the worse, and she passed away. And on her deathbed, as she was dying, and the nurses were saying she's just holding on, she just needs to hear someone say it's okay to go. And my dad was absolutely devastated. So he goes, "Steve, it's up to you." Which was like, I'm the baby of the family. Why? But I took that and said, "Mom, it's time to go. Jesus is waiting for you." And at that moment, I realized that was probably the first time I've had a conversation with my mom about Jesus outside of Sunday school, which is just way too long of a gap. So I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm really missing something here." Um, and somewhere along those lines, after my mom had passed away, I lost my faith, or I got angry with God. I'm still wrestling on what really happened. All I
Mhm.
know is my family refers to that as the dark ages. Um, it got rough. I didn't go all off, but it was rough, and I was in a really dark spot.
Oh,
And I was out camping with the scout leaders. We were going through some training, and part of the simulation was we would follow what the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts would be going through. So we have all these different ranks and positions. And I thought, you know what, I really want my faith back, but I was just so stubborn and bitter. It just wasn't coming back. So maybe I can force it, which, really doesn't work. But I signed up to be a chaplain aide. And the first weekend, the chaplain of the service got up there and said, how can anyone deny God didn't create this? And what I heard was, how can you deny God had created this? And it was like this slap up against the back of the head got my attention. I was like, all right, God, you got my attention, but I still have some issues. But you do have my attention. And right before we went away for a few weeks, and we were going to come back the next camp out, the scouts, or us as the trainees, were going to lead that same chapel. And everybody was signing up for different parts, the readings, the songs, the psalms, everything else. And I was like, I got this covered. Everybody send me your notes and everything. I'll put it together. I'll make the bulletin. I'll do the cover page. And I thought, ha ha, I fooled them. and put it all together. And I noticed the sermon was missing. There's no message. So I quickly called the scoutmaster and the gentleman directing the camp, and I told him what happened. And he goes, "Oh, don't worry, Steve, you can do it. You got this." I said, "Okay, it's time to be honest." I said, "I am struggling with my faith," because nobody at camp knew. So I knew that little comment about God creating that scene behind us was from God. So I was like, "Mike, I can't do this." And he's like, "Yeah, you can. You got this. I got to go." And he hung up. And that was the loudest hang up I've ever heard in my life. And I was on a cell phone, so there's no click, but it was loud. I was like, what am I going to do? So I'm digging through it. I found this poem called The Edge, which is come to the edge, we might fall. Come to the edge, it's too high. Come to the edge. And they went to the edge, and he pushed, and they flew. And I just relate it to how that's how we see the younger kids and the scouts and the youth. And I was going to leave it at that. And somewhere words came out of my mouth that said, and that's how the Creator sees us. And that not only is he the one that brings us to the edge, and he's the one that pushes us, but it's also the wind beneath us that carries us and gives us the strength to soar. And I was like, where did that come from? And I got done that and moved on for the next person to do some reading. And the chaplain came up and goes, "That was just right." I said, "I don't know where that came from." I said, "I guess it's my calling." And because in high school, I did my aptitude test. And number one thing actually was ministry, which I thought, I'm not worthy. I can't do it because I still didn't have that understanding of grace. So when I said to the chaplain, it's my calling, it was like this bucket of perfectly temperature water dumped over my head and just washed every doubt, every bitterness, anger, everything just washed away. It was pure peace and joy. And I just, I still get teared up on that one. And I just was absolutely blown away. And I just collapsed into his arms crying. He goes, "Welcome back." And I came home and flew into the house. "Honey, I got to quit my job. I got to go to seminary. I'm going to," and she's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. Who are you? What happened to the man that went to camp? But I like you a lot better." And from there, it just blossomed. I got more involved with the church, got into youth ministry, which really shocked me because I was used to the elementary kids and Cub Scouts. And I helped out in a 7th and 8th grade Sunday school class. I thought those kids were out of their mind. There is no way I could work with them. And of course, God goes, "No, actually, that's who you're going to work with." So I've been leading junior high and middle school ministry for the past 8 or 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, now, so did you quit your job?
No. I have this thing called a mortgage payment and a very rational wife. But she did see the change in me, and she did inspire me to go on and further my studies, however that would be, without enlisting in a Bible college or seminary, especially since, like I said, my youngest is graduating this year. So we have these other things called tuition payments and loans. So I wrestled with, what does God want me to do? I feel called, but I was like, what do you want me to do? And so I know approving training records and looking at batch records really isn't what you're calling me to do, even though I know he calls us to serve him in everything we do. It just didn't seem right. And I was really wrestling with the whole thing. And I could still point on the sidewalk when I was walking into work the one day, because we park about maybe a quarter mile away from where our desks are. And I was like, God, I know you're calling me to do more than approve batch records and training records and give access. I was like, what do you want from me? And clear as bones, clear as day, I don't know if it was a voice I heard, a thought, but it was a very, very clear, behind these gates is your mission field. And I suddenly became Jonah. Oh, no, not Nineveh. No, I'm not doing that. Are you out of your mind? And you know how that goes. That argument never works either. And I was like, all right, because every day I pray that I'll go where you want me to go and do what you want me to do and be what you want me to be. But
Yeah.
seriously, here at work, it's like, oh man, how is that going to work out? So I been wrestling with that for a couple weeks, and I was at a workshop off campus with about 100 other people in the room from the company, and sat down to lunch. And the gentleman to my right, as he sat down, I went to turn to introduce myself, and I got greeted with, and he was praying before lunch,
Mm-hmm.
and it totally blew me away. I was like, I got to meet this guy. I got to find out about him. And that's where I got this idea. Like, why don't we just get together? Some guys just get together for a small little prayer group or prayer chain or something like that at work.
Mm-hmm.
So since then, it's grown a little bit. It started out with me and him, and then as I was still trying to kick everything around, my confirmation class went to another church to worship with others. It
Mm-hmm.
was the field trip, and got there, and it was for their contemporary service. And the worship leader and lead guitarist was the guy that sat maybe 100 feet away from me. It's like, I didn't know he was a worship leader. It's like, oh my gosh. And then I had some great in-depth faith conversations with one of the guys that worked for me. And I was like, why don't we get together, the four of us, get together
Mm-hmm.
and just wrestle around how, as husbands, dads, brothers, sons, and managers in this company, handle life as Christians. And it started
Yeah.
going that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we call ourselves the Bricks, the Brothers in Christ. And then it was the Brothers in Christ and Sarah, because she had heard about us and she was, I want to join.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was interesting.
Very cool. So is it still going?
Oh my
What's
gosh,
it look like today?
quite different. Shortly after that, there had been an article in one of the company newsletters about me, and my involvement with Scouts. And I used to make hiking sticks, and it turned into almost a ministry,
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't just carve a stick. Every stick had a very spiritual connection with the person
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. And the next article was about the trainer, or the head trainer, and she actually gave a little bit of her testimony in the newsletter about her faith in Christ. And I was blown away to see this, not only in the company, but in the company newsletter. They promised us
Yeah.
they would put in what we said.
Mm-hmm.
So I reached out to her immediately going, oh my gosh, like, Lisa, that was phenomenal. Thank you so much. And just to let you know, we have a small little prayer group. There's about 8 or 9 of us now. We've got a little prayer chain going if you want to be a part of it. And she was, oh my gosh, I've got a small little prayer group too with a few girls. I was like, you know what? We ought to get together. Why don't we get together once a month, maybe, call it Lunch with God, and whoever shows up, and let's just see what happens. And she was, that's a great idea. Do you want to run with it? I was like, sure, why not? So sent the meeting planner out to about 19 people, the 2 email chains, and I think all 19 showed up.
Wow.
And there was a lot of tears, just people giving testimonies of when they came to Christ. One of them came to Christ in the labs because one of the coworkers always had this positive spin on everything, and always smiling, even when something was going wrong. She still felt great. And her coworker was like, where does this joy come from? So she gave her testimony. So she gave her life to Christ right in the middle of the lab, which was phenomenal.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it just keeps growing. So that was, I believe, 8 or 9 years ago. So
Wow.
Yeah, so we still have it now with COVID, with the majority of the company working from home. We still have a thousand or so working on site in production, but we have over 100 people in the prayer list. I just sent one out today.
Wow.
I think it was like 119 or something like that. It's insane. Not everybody shows up,
Yeah.
but we get a dozen or more once a month just to talk about what's going on. Like we may just bring up a devotion that we recently read or a sermon that we heard on Sunday, or we just have this conversation building, and suddenly you feel this theme going, and it's totally spirit led.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing, and we always end in prayer. So when we send somebody an invitation, that's usually how it goes is, hey, we have this meeting
Hmm.
and we end in prayer. Yeah, at work, we pray. And everybody walks out of there peaceful, especially on the days where we're so stressed out going, "Ah," I even do it.
Yeah.
I did it last month going, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
Like, which is horrible when you say, I don't have time for God. It really sits pretty heavy with you. So I always try to make those, especially when I'm saying that, like, man, I don't have time. And those are always the ones that we walk away from going, I'm so glad I did that. That is
Yeah.
exactly what I needed.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And so one quick question I'd like to ask
sure.
you is, so if there are other people listening to this podcast who'd be interested in trying to do something like this at their workplace, would you be open to being contacted?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
we'll put your contact information in the show notes so that
Absolutely.
people can get in touch with you. And of course, those of you who are listening to this podcast, you can also always reach out to me and I'll connect you with Steve as well.
Yeah.
So now, Steve, I want to go a little bit further. So
Mhm.
you and I then connected just a few months ago,
Right.
and you have had the opportunity to take place in a couple of mission trips. Tell me a little bit, first of all, about how you found Follower of One and what's going on, what you thought about what you've done so far.
Okay. Was actually listening to a podcast for, I work for him. I know you're aware of them. And I, I was on the website or something. There's a little banner on the side for Follower of One. I was like, I got to check this out, and clicked on that. As soon as I saw the marketplace mission trip, I was in 100%, 110%. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like, this is just what I need. This just complements that lunch with God so well. And the trips have been phenomenal. Just the daily devotions, the challenges, the questions. They're always right in line with what they need. And I'm happy to say that I get to apply those on a daily basis, not just on those 2 weeks on the mission trips. Just did it again today, and amazing results. And sometimes you don't know what's going to happen, whether you're just
Yeah,
planting a seed or you have this in-depth conversation. But that's not up to us. Like
that's right. It's not,
we
is it?
just plant the seeds, and
Yeah,
we try to help nurture it and grow, but that's not always our job. So yeah,
so I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
So you also, now this, your second mission trip, we just used our new mission trip in a box tool. We've been calling it that because we don't have another idea for another name just yet. But um, our goal is to help other people run their own mission trips, because I believe more people will get involved if they know someone else who's doing it. And so trying to allow groups or small groups to do their own mission trip, we've invested a lot of energy and time in that in the Follower One world for the last several months. And we just completed our first mission trip that was with this new mission trip in a box tool. Have you thought at all about the idea of possibly trying to do a mission trip with some of your prayer group from work?
Absolutely, yeah. I actually just recommended the next mission trip to one of the coworkers. But yeah, definitely would love to see how we can make that work
Yeah,
at the company.
and we'll talk about that offline, and then
Yeah.
I'll get you back on here after you've run one.
Oh,
So
okay.
our first, as we're recording this, it'll be a couple of weeks before this airs, but about the time you hear this, we'll be doing our first mission trip that wasn't led by me. So I'm excited to work through this process so that we can have, if you've got a small group of 3 friends and you want to do our marketplace mission trip, our new tool will equip you to do that. You'll be able to do it on your own schedule and have your own check-in meetings or calls or however you want to do that, all take place inside this tool. Or you can like have face-to-face meetings even, but each person can go through the process and kind of keep track of it and go through the mission trip. So that's our next endeavor, is trying to build that out so that churches or small groups or groups of people at businesses or things like that can do this together.
Oh, definitely. And I can see that working in, like you said, any company, any size, like where 2 or more are gathered.
Exactly.
So,
Well,
yeah.
and my hope is that, like you just kind of stumbled through this, right? We find the coworkers in our business. If our business is very large at all, we have to kind of find the coworkers who are fellow believers. But if we were all playing from the same kind of script, if we all had the same intention in our workplace, which I hope kind of lines up with our 5 daily activities of praying, appreciating others, knowing what we believe, serving others, and speaking for ourselves, then we are all working to help other people move closer to Jesus. That will help us be more effective in our workplaces.
Definitely.
So, well, now you told me when you and I talked the first time, you kind of had some wrestling match a little bit with God about this whole experience about seeing your mission as inside the business instead of outside the business, and building this community, starting to build this prayer community. What do you think is next? What's happening next for you and for your group of believers in this company?
We're still growing. We're still just letting it up to the Lord. It's just been amazing what we're doing. I think the marketplace mission trip will definitely help that, because we each wrestle with it too, going, we keep reaching out to ourselves, right? Like we're preaching to the choir, and there's quite a few that go, man, we should be doing more. We should be trying to reach out to the non-believers. And that's such a tricky position, especially in the corporate world. Our company actually has established employee resource groups. So, and different support ones for Cancer Connect or caregivers or families, anything like that. And we've been wrestling, do we make Lunch with God an official employee resource group? And I reached out to them, like, all right, God, this one's in your hands. And reached out to the vice president of the group, the head of the group. And she's like, that's very interesting. Let's set a conference call up to talk about it. So I thought, okay, this is good. And we had the conference call and went around the room, the circle, while on the phone, introduced each other. And the last gentleman introduced himself as, I'm a devout Mennonite and the lawyer. And like this lump just appears, like, lawyer? Legal? And I was like, oh, here we go. We're getting shut down. And they all, whether they were Christians or not, said they absolutely love the concept, but to keep it under the radar, because if we had a group, then that could also mean that Wiccans could have a group and devil worshippers or whatever. And they're like, they actually reached out to some other companies in the industry going, hey, we got this neat concept. What do you recommend? What are you guys doing? And everyone was like, no, we did that once and it just became a mess. So reaching out to the non-believers is still a little tricky. I think I've done it a couple times, but never with any bad results or anything like that.
Yeah.
Actually found myself in the director's office one day with the door closed, and I just had this really strong feeling with what he'd been posting on LinkedIn and all the other groups. Um, it just sounded so much like a servant's heart and servant leadership. It just echoed of that all the time. So I reached out to him going, hey, don't want to do this through email. Can we meet? And I closed the door and he's like, what's up? I said, so I introduced the whole concept to him. He goes, oh, that's interesting. And I was like, I started sweating going, how do I get out of this office? Like the door's closed. And he goes, yeah, that's not for me. He grew up Catholic, but he's just not in that spot right now. But nothing ever came out of it. It just, well, nothing bad ever came out of it. I don't know if a seed was planted that day or not. I follow up with them every now and then.
Yeah.
And he asks how the group's going, but he doesn't say, hey, can you send me an invitation again? But someday I'm hopeful for that one. Yeah.
It's interesting because I think, you know, as we talked about on the mission trip stuff too, we have to get outside of our job description. We have to serve people and live in such a way to where our life makes our faith credible. And then people will start asking. Otherwise, everyone's just kind of comparing their own beliefs to our beliefs based on some personal measures.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think I hope the mission trip becomes something that business people can use as a tool to kind of come up with a way to serve their coworkers without having to talk to them, because many people do feel awkward talking to others about their faith. And just starting a conversation about faith in the workplace, it's out of context. But if we serve others, if we go beyond our job description and serve others and they ask us about it, then it becomes easier.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. I actually challenged everybody in the Lunch with God group today. I saw the next planner stole a little bit from the mission trip last week. I was like, hey, before we open up any email, answer any call, just think of Matthew 22, 37 to 39. Love God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind, and love your neighbors as yourselves.
Yeah.
Said, what's your work going to look like if you do that before each one? So the replies have been very interesting today. I blew up my inbox with that, but it was definitely worth it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, so real quickly, tell people how they can connect with you. If you'd like to learn more about trying to start a group like this in your workplace, or you have a question for Steve, how can they get in touch with you?
Okay. Probably the easiest is through my email. It's steve.akela84@gmail.com. That's my old scouting address. Never changed. You can also find me on Facebook or LinkedIn.
Yeah, and we'll put links to both your Facebook profile and your LinkedIn profile in the show notes.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for you, brother, for doing this. Thanks very much.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. I just, like I said, when I first saw that link and advertisement for Follower of One, I was in. Like it was fishing, and you set the hook hard. So it was good. So I keep, every time I hear mission trip, I think fishing trip, and because we're fishing for men, and but it's just the first day you said mission trip, I could have sworn you said fishing trip, and I was like, that really works in this case. But yeah, because you set the hook with me, you landed me.
Well, I'm glad to know that, and Jim and Martha will be glad to know that I work for him had something to do with it as well.
Absolutely.
They're good friends for sure, and a great ministry as well. And thank you very much again, and to everyone listening, thank you for being a Marketplace minister. I hope that this helps you in your daily walk. Please check out followerofone.org. The mission trips are at marketplacemissiontrip.com. That's the easiest way to get to the mission trip sign up. Thanks very much, Steve, and thank you for listening to the podcast, folks. Thanks for being a Marketplace minister.
Thanks so much. God bless.
God bless you.